Hi, it's Tuesday, June 9th, 2020. My name is Noah Seeley, and welcome to my channel. So today we're going to be going over just one LeetCode question that I did earlier today. The reason for only having one question today is that there are two implementations for the solution that I want to show, so we'll quickly go over both. So the question is of hard difficulty and is called trapping rainwater. So without any delay, let's just jump into it. So I think the most important part to understanding this question and many other problem-solving style questions like this during interviews, tests, or whatever, is really making sure that you understand the question itself. There isn't really too much to do with data structures here. It's purely being able to sort out a working algorithm kind of logically. So with that being said, let's really try to understand this question before looking at any code. Basically, we can imagine ourselves working on a roof, and as it rains on that roof, we observe that because the roof isn't completely even, there is some water that gets trapped within it. We notice that for the water to be trapped, it needs to be surrounded by two pieces that are at least as tall as the water itself. And the water's height is determined by the shorter of these two surrounding pieces. The question simply becomes determining how much water will get trapped given a roof. And we must then code an algorithm general enough to cover all cases of roofs. One important thing to note here is that sometimes a roof will have a piece of it of some height, but also some water on top of that height. So we can then imagine that once we find the two surrounding roof pieces, we simply take the shorter ones, as the algorithm goes, and then take it away from the height of the target block. Thus, we're only looking at the water. So we'll do that for all of the pieces on the roof, sum up all of the water bits that we've isolated, and then we have our answer. So yeah, that's the general algorithm we'll follow. And I'm going to show you guys two ways to implement it with code. The first being of a big O of n squared time complexity, and another more efficient one being big O of n time complexity. But before we check out the code, please make sure that you have a really good understanding of the question and convince yourself how the implementation makes sense and covers all of the bases. One tip I have for understanding this is to make some sort of visual scenario to follow the algorithm with that you can draw out and refer quickly to while on an exam. Even if you're on an interview, I think making a visual and walking the interviewers through it can help prove your understanding quite a bit and show a lot of your thought process. Luckily, this question provides a visual of the problem, which I think makes understanding it a whole lot easier. So take a look at that visual, walk yourself through the algorithm, listen to my explanation again, and when you're ready, we'll jump into the code. So I'm here on LeetCode, and the algorithm implementation basically follows my explanation that I had and was loosely taken from the solution section on this LeetCode question. So thank you for that. With that being said, let's take a look at the big O n squared time complexity implementation first. So we iterate over each piece of the roof, and for each, we will go through the whole roof and find the largest piece of the roof to the left and to the right of the current piece. This acts as finding the two largest surrounding pieces that will determine the height of the water, as we went over in the explanation before. Once this is found, we take the shorter of the two left and right pieces and subtract their height from the height of the current piece to compensate for any amount of roof that the current piece of the roof might have, while it might still have some water over it. The algorithm will only actually sum any parts of the water and will work any roof-only parts out as a total, as their pieces will be higher than the surrounding pieces. Thus, they basically subtract themselves out. And you can convince yourself of that easily by simply walking through that visual that the question has provided. Overall, this question will run in big O n squared time complexity because, as we stated, we need to iterate through the list for each element in the list. So now that we've covered that first implementation, let's look at a slightly more advanced big O to just n time complexity algorithm. Now this algorithm itself is basically the same as the previous one, but we use pointers to the left and right pieces in order to compensate for not exhausting the list for each element in it, which will bring the time complexity down to just big O of n because we're saving the algorithm a lot of time. As we can see, we will just use these two pointers, left and right, to continue to calculate the height of the water for each piece of the roof until they meet in the middle. So you can see the code here, and I think this is a very good example of how to cut down on the running time of an algorithm. Basically, instead of iterating over a list over and over again to check two values, which will usually stay the same anyway, we will keep them as more global variables like the pointers and just update them as needed. And there's another very good visualization in that in the solution section on this question. So guys, that concludes my discussion on the trapping rainwater LeetCode question. There are many other ways to implement this algorithm, even some more listed in the solution section of the question. So as always, I've linked all resources that I've used in the description below for you guys to check out. If you feel like I've missed anything or got anything wrong, please let me know in the description below. That's all for today. Thanks for watching. See you tomorrow.